Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Mental. Just a reminder that this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. I know they are hard to find, and I get that. I have a bunch of resources on my website if you need them, but I am not your clinician. I am a psychologist, but I am not your psychologist. So if you need any specific help, please look for the help of a licensed mental health professional. Learn all you can learn from the podcast. Enjoy the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Mind Your Mental Podcast. Today we have Kizzle, founder of Express Yourself Black Men, and a Black Man Safe Haven, which is the largest mental health platform for Black men created by Black men. Welcome to the show, Kizzle.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Martin. I'm grateful to be here. It's been a long time, so I'm looking forward to the conversation for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So I got introduced to your work specifically with the podcast by just looking on, it was honestly social media, and you're always like pretty consistent. And I really appreciated the fact that your platform was not only for you, but you also had like a bunch of amazing guests to talk about Black mental health. Can you share more about what made you decide to start Express Yourself Black Men in the first place?
Yes, so that's a good question. So it started for me in college. So I went through my own battles with depression, suicidal ideations. Essentially, what happened for me was when I was a teenager, I got into a relationship really young. So like 14, first real relationship, like first real person that I saw myself potentially being with for the rest of my life. And when it came time for us to go to college, I remember she was gonna start dorming in Delaware. And I was like, listen, man, I don't know. I don't know if I could be away from you. Right. So I decided to follow her to college. So we went to Delaware State University together. We go to college together. And as you're going to college, you just start growing. And we started growing and we started growing apart. And so that led to us breaking up. And that took a big toll on me because that was my first heartbreak. And eventually, what ended up happening was because I didn't have a process for actually healing, that led to depression. And that depression led to suicide ideations. So I was at a point where I remember telling people, I told one friend, I said, yo, if God came down right now and was like, yo, bro, are you ready to go? Pack it up. I'd have been like, yeah, what we talking about? Let's go. That's where I was at mentally. And I knew then that something was wrong, for lack of better words, but I just didn't know how to actually go about the healing process because that was so foreign. Nobody really talked about Black men's mental health. Nobody really talked about Black men having feelings and going through these type of things. So I didn't know what to do. And so eventually what ended up happening was I started to, you know, grind my pain away, which is what a lot of us as Black men do. And what I mean by that is like we focus on all these different things. We try to learn different things. We try to make money, and we're doing that because we're trying to get our mind off of what it is that we're experiencing. So around that time, I started something called a Kizzle brand, which is a project aimed at raising awareness for depression and helping people through difficult times. So my intentions were pure. Like I really wanted to help people, and I did do that for a few years. But I also still didn't start my own healing journey. I had done like some self-reflection and I thought that was enough. Like I learned some of the mistakes that I made in my past relationship, but I hadn't actually dived deeper into understanding why did you follow this girl to college in the first place? Like, are there some attachment issues there? I didn't even know what attachment issues were, attachment styles, like all these different kind of things, right? Because I hadn't actually did the work with a professional. So 2020 happens. I'm still doing a Kizzle brand. I'm going to different schools. We're doing workshops, all these different kind of things. Pandemic happens. Because I didn't actually deal with the actual root problem, I had an attachment issue, right? And I hopped into another relationship in 2018, right around the time I graduated from college. That relationship lasted for 2 years. We did long distance up until the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, I found out that she cheated on me. And so when that happened, I was like, all right, bro, let's take a step back. After I dealt with all the anger and all that kind of stuff, I was like, all right, let me take a step back and try and understand what's actually going on here. Why are you getting into these relationships? Why are you rushing into things? Like I knew something was wrong. I didn't blame myself for being cheated on. I never like saying that. I don't like mentioning that story and not saying that because I know sometimes people may think that's where I'm going. I didn't blame myself for being cheated on, right? What I did blame myself for was not doing the due diligence of like understanding who it is that you're with, like rushing into things because that's what I realized. Okay, timeline wise, like you rushed into this relationship. Why did you do that? And I didn't have the answer to that. And so that's what led to me getting into therapy. And from therapy, I learned so many things about myself. I always thought that I was self-aware because I had done that self-reflection in college. I thought that I was more self-aware than most people, right? But then I realized through therapy, talking to a Black woman, right, that I was like, yo, damn, I actually don't know as much as I think I do about myself. And there are some things that I haven't uncovered, and I started sharing those things openly on social media. And I had a friend that was just encouraging me to keep sharing and start a podcast. And eventually that's what ended up starting the platform Express Yourself Black Man. So we started as a podcast similar to what you're doing right now. Actually, even like stripping back even this layer, like we just started with audio, like just straight up just a mic and audio and just putting it on the
I
podcast
know. Back in
platform.
the
And then
day,
we,
you ain't need a video. Like you ain't have to
yeah,
have like you could
right,
just
right,
do
right.
audio. That was already
You
a
know what I'm
lot.
saying? Exactly, exactly. So I just started with audio, started with what I had, and then we just kind of branched out into what you see on the platform today. But we just built it brick by brick.
Hey everyone, just a reminder that Mind Your Mental is not just a podcast, it is also a amazing community, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. I mean, you get more access to me. What more could you want in this life? So, if you want to join the community, if you're not already on the community, go to my social media. My social media is the same, Raquel Martin, PhD, and DM me the word community so you can get details on joining this amazing flipping community. You get more access to me, y'all. Like, I'm a delight. All right. All right. Hope to see you there.
So yeah, that's the story, man. It started from like it's a passion of mine. Like it's something that I've actually dealt with. I know what it feels like to be a Black man that's kind of lost and not really sure about how to heal and what you need to be doing, and like depressed and anxious and all these different kind of things, but not really sure how to vocalize that and what you need to be doing. So I just wanted to create a space where we can kind of have those conversations and find the solutions for us that work.
Yeah, and y'all have amazing conversations throughout the entire podcast. Can you think of, I don't know if there's any specific themes, but have you ever had any realizations like, yeah, like anytime somebody comes in, anytime a Black man
Hmm.
comes in to talk about his mental health, these are the top
Hmm.
three things that it's like, yeah, like I already know where he was going because we hear this probably from like virtually every guest when it comes to mental health or
Yes.
relationships with others or
Yeah.
relationships with themselves.
Yeah, you're about to get me in my bag. I see you're doing a great job with these questions, by the way. So top three things that Black men come into the podcast talking about. Number one, I think masculinity is a big thing, is a big topic. We're always going to have the conversation about what masculinity is, what it means, right? And even if we don't have the conversation, we're indirectly having the conversation about it. It's the way that society like trains us to believe we have to be as men. I call it the man card. There's only a few things that you can put on your card as a man that makes you a man. And if you don't adhere to those things, then you're not a man, right? Like being tough, not crying, not having emotions, being real stoic. I just had an episode that I did with Odie on normative male. I forgot I forgot what the actual word is, but I'm gonna get it before the end of the episode because I have it somewhere. But we just did an episode on that. Essentially, what it means is basically like men having issues with expressing their emotions. So that's one of the big things that comes up. So masculinity is one, not feeling comfortable expressing emotions, especially expressing emotions to partners because things may have come up in the past where you've expressed something and then it comes up in an argument, that kind of thing. And then I think the third thing is finances. Finances is a big thing, like not having enough money. And this comes up directly and indirectly as well, right? Like, so I know there are certain people in my life, like friends, that, they paused their whole life because they didn't have enough money. So they didn't want to do certain things with their partner. They didn't want to, take the next step and do certain things. And I understand that to a degree, but that's like a big thing for us. And not to get too political, but I've been, obviously we're in that time right now where politics are a big thing. Right. And so I've been kind of looking at some of the data on like men and like what are some of the things that like make men want to vote for Trump and these type of things, right? And so one of the things that I saw is that men right now, like our biggest concern, at least what the data says, is like the economy. Whereas women's biggest concern is like abortion and reproductive rights. And so like it's just interesting to see like that, and you can kind of understand it, but it's interesting to see that parallel. So whoever has a conversation about that more tends to like get more votes from whatever demographic. And so like I'm saying all that to say like finances is a big thing for us. And you can see it even with politics in the state of like what people are saying right now, what is important to them. So that's a very, very big thing. Finances, I would say, is the third one. But masculinity, like emotional expression, and then finances are like the main topics that always come up.
I think it's like when it comes to the aspect of like the election, I would hope more men, especially black men, realize the two are linked because I can't think of
Hmm.
anything more expensive mentally, physically, emotionally than my kids. My God. Like, I
Trust,
mean,
trust,
let's like you
trust
worried
and
about
believe me.
money. You know what? Having children that you did not want to have in the first place, or not having appropriate reproductive health, or
Hmm.
I've always felt like what's best for black men is what's best for the black community. What's best for black women is best for the black community. What's best for non-binary black people is best for the black community. And the aspect, I saw this question on social media the other day, like why aren't more women wanting to have kids? Like why is there a decrease in that? And I'm like, speaking as a black woman, like all of my deliveries have been incredibly traumatic. We also trying to live out here, so if you got a group of
Hmm.
people who can't even take care of us through childbirth, it's literally life or death. No, it's not life or death. I mean, it's one of the most physically taxing things on anybody, male or female. Like it's
Hmm.
just physically taxing. But like if you know for a fact that you have a 4 times greater likelihood of not surviving it, I mean, I would choose to be an aunt as well. And then it's also really expensive. Like I had my
Right.
oldest in Maryland. I can't even remember how much he cost, but I don't want to say cost, but like bills. I don't know how much
No, I
the
get what you say.
the,
I get
the
what you
medical
mean.
bills
Yeah.
cost, but I distinctly
Yeah.
remember it was not a comma. Like I remember being like, okay, my oldest, my youngest, thousands, thousands upon
Mm,
thousands of dollars,
mm,
thousands
mm,
upon thousands of dollars,
mm.
and I'm just sitting here like, wow, this is insane. So it's also the financial aspect of it. So like I would hope more people would see the connection between that. I think that the financial part is interesting because I was with my husband for we were together for 14 years, married for 7.
Love it.
We were together for 7 years before he proposed.
Hmm.
There have been so many times where I'm like, yo, you've lost your mind. Like, I don't know I just want to get my finances together. Anybody thinking about your finances? What are you
Listen, we
talking
are.
about?
We
Like,
are.
what?
I'm telling
But
you.
here's the thing: that whole
I'm
aspect
telling
of
you.
being like, oh, I got to reach this specific financial thing. Why?
It's a big
Did we
thing.
did we buy a mansion as soon as we got married? Nope, still in that apartment. Did we pay off copious amounts of debt? Nope. Do we start going out to dinner more? Nope, still like a more like occasional thing. I think it's not only the money aspect, but I think when it comes to black men, they're like
Hmm.
always being in this position of when you're growing up and you're not able to have this whole aspect of emotional conversations or even acknowledge emotions. And,
Hmm.
we talk about the adultification of black girls. Black people overall are adultified. It's really easy to focus solely on the tangible when that's the only thing that's been acceptable for you, right? Like
Hmm.
I can't talk about my emotions, but I can provide cash. And I think that's also limiting to black men, right? Like so
Hmm. Hmm.
when men talk about that, I'm like, I'm be real with you. You limiting yourself too. Like if you think the only thing that you have to offer is this financial aspect of it, why would I see you as more? Like,
Mm.
don't you want to be seen as more than just the check you can provide? And then you worried about you like, I mean, she only want me for my cash. Cash is the only thing you saying you got to offer. Cash is the only thing you
Mm.
saying you got to offer. So like,
Hmm.
yeah. So when it comes to when it comes to that conversation, I'm like, you also need to show that you got more to offer too. Like, you also got to be like, yeah, I mean, I could provide finances, but like, I can also provide more. And then if you can't see me for that, you can walk away from relationships too. It's not solely like women being like, he's not good enough for me. I got 2 boys. My dog is a male. I'm married to my husband. Like I'm also want to be
Mm.
like, I mean, girl, you're also not what you should be. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know how else to share this with you. But you're talking about what can he offer? What can you offer? What are we talking about? Like, what are we? So I also think I totally get why it's that conversation, but I think that's also a result of like stereotypes. Like you always talk about stereotypes with women, Black
Hmm.
Superwoman syndrome and welfare queen, but I don't think enough stereotypes conversations are talked about when it comes to was it John Clark, and he was a guy who like raced against the machine when it came to like he was like a railroad worker or whatever, but a black man, and he like raced against the machine to see who could lay down
Hmm.
enough track, and he won, beat the machine, and then he died with a hammer in his hand. And
Mm.
every time when I heard that story growing up, they were talking about like the strength of black men and how they can do anything. And I remember thinking like, I don't seem right. Like, you mean to tell me like, so the most he has to offer is his ability to work and die? I said, yeah,
Labor.
he beat the
Hmm.
machine, but he died. Did I not grasp this story? And I think when I think of stereotypes, I think of that with black men. I'm like, yeah, because
Hmm.
you guys are also being limited according to like what you can offer as well. It's like,
Produce.
well, what can you do? Because what is that scene in Soul Food? He's like, never tell a woman, especially a black woman, that you ain't got a job. right? Like I think it needs to be a joint effort because it's hard to, men don't come out the womb as like grown men, right? So like when we're having these
Mhm,
conversations about you get to this point where, oh, I want you to share your feelings. It's like I'm
mhm.
35 years old. Ain't nobody ever asked me about feelings in my life. And you expect me to just be fluid and
Right,
emotions? Like that's absurd. It starts with children.
right, right,
Like it starts with
right.
children. And I think I'll be seeing women like, oh, I want black men to talk more. And I'll be like, yeah, right. I feel like I just heard you say that your son's not allowed to cry though. So like, I was just so curious. Do you
Yeah,
not see the connection between that?
yeah,
Like y'all didn't come out the
yeah.
womb as like grown behind men. You're like, it's like there's no the same way, women are adultified. I don't think sometimes women identify the fact of the way that they do it to their own community. Like it starts with childhood.
No,
Um,
absolutely,
and I think there needs to
absolutely.
be more conversations like your platform does to be like, all right, let's discuss it because it is going to be heavier lifting. Like I could totally get it being harder for black men to express emotions, just like you mentioned, it may be shut down. You also
Mhm,
can't express what you don't know. My poor husband being married to a psychologist, I'd be like, I
mm,
mean, I wait all day, yo. Like I ain't got no problem, but we gonna have conversations about emotions. I want to know how you feeling. Feeling fine.
mhm.
Fine's not an emotion. That's not an emotion. And if we can't discuss it, I mean, we can always just. I'll wait till the playoffs come on. Like I would be malicious. Be like, you want to talk? I would love to talk about that scenario that happened a week ago. I know the game is on, but like I really
I hope you
I
don't do
just did
that.
not. No,
I
I'm
hope
not
you
that
don't do
bad, but
that.
I do. I'll be real with you. At times, I do feel sorry for the fact that this man is married to. I married like a typical like Southern black man, and the amount that he has to
Mhm,
talk about his feelings, I'll be like, I know it's tough. But I've been
mhm.
like this for the past 14 years, and you knew this going in. It don't take that long to know
And he
how
loves
I
and
am.
he loves you for it.
But I'll be like,
And he loves you for it.
I know it just seems like you're stressed out. Nope. If I was stressed out, I would say it. Would you though? Do you need it to be
Mm,
more? So I feel like there needs
mm,
to be. I say all that to say I feel like there needs to be a joint effort, and like despite what social media would have you thinking, this whole gender wars thing, there are so I genuinely don't think black men hate black women. But if you look online, that's what you would think. Like that's
mhm,
genuinely what you would think. Black men hate black women hate
mhm,
black men. We're at each other's throat every 5 seconds. Like
mhm.
clickbait is insane.
It's real. It's real. And yeah, that's why on the platform too, like we don't just only interview black men. Like it's a
Hmm.
platform for black men, but we have conversations with black women all the time because I think it's important for black men to see black men and women on social media just having cordial, regular conversations and
Hmm.
not nobody's yelling at the other person. Even if there's a disagreement, it's disagreeing respectfully, like, and just trying to understand the other person's viewpoint and perspective and all that kind of stuff. So we try to do our due diligence with that and just make sure that we're putting out content that shows that, because I think that type of normal content is not really highlighted enough on social media. And then the
Hmm.
opposite, as like black women speaking positively about black men, is not shown enough. I think there's a lot of conversations about black women tearing down black men, tearing down black women, but there's not a lot of like us doing like uplifting. And so we try to do that as well on the platform because it's very important. The other thing I wanted to mention too is I remember the term is it's called normative male alexithymia. And so that's basically what I was talking about earlier with men not having they're not being able to express emotionally, and that basically goes back to like what you were talking about, which is the socialization of black boys. Like, how are we
Yeah.
socialized growing up? Which is basically, yo, listen, as a boy, you don't really need that emotion thing, like that's not really gonna do much for you. Let the girls do that, and you worry about being tough and getting stronger and making sure that you know how to provide and protect, and that's pretty much it. And so that conditions us to be like what you talked about with the scenario with the black man versus the machine. It conditions us to be this machine, basically. Like, all right,
Yeah.
cool. My only function in society is to provide and protect. It's really the three P's: provide, protect, produce.
Yeah.
That's what I think about, honestly. How much can you produce as a man? And if you cannot produce, then you are not a man. If you're not a man, then you don't have any identity. That's why you see so many men like that having like these identity crises, like they don't know who they are, what they're on earth for, unless they're making money and they're producing for the people around them. Not even for themselves for the most part. Like some of us will like think that we're doing it for ourselves, but really underneath all of it, if you peel back the layers, like really underneath all of it is we're doing it because we want to make sure that mom's is good or pops is good or aunt, uncle, or grandma, or whatever. Like that's the motivator, which is not a bad thing, but we just have to understand like that can't be the only reason why you're operating on earth. Like that cannot be your sole motivation is just to produce for somebody else. There's a problem with that. And I think
Yeah.
we've been socialized for so long to think that's the right way to think about things. And it's kind of coming back on us right now.
Yeah, it's also so limiting. Like it's incredibly limiting. I don't want my children, I don't want black boys overall to feel as though they're only what they can produce because I think it puts
Hmm.
limitations on who they are because I mean, I don't think work is supposed, work isn't supposed to be the epitome of what you do. I more so believe in the aspect of a mission. Now, my husband's an accountant. So he has
Hmm.
told me this multiple times, and I understand that everybody ain't got to be in love with every single aspect of their job. I get that. I happen to love my job, and he's just like, like you can also be aware you like your job for what it can provide for you, but I also want you to
Right.
have something outside of work. And I think if you only
Right.
think about it that way, I think black women in particular are going through this whole aspect of this resurgence of like your well-being and finding hobbies and doing all these extra things and building new
Hmm.
relationship with friendships. And it's like
Hmm.
I want to see the same thing for black men. Like I want to see the
Yep.
same thing for black men of prioritizing themselves, not as
Hmm.
it relates to other people, but like hobbies and stuff. You ask a black woman, yeah, I took up rug tufting. That was fun for a little bit, and oh, I'm doing this. I took a hair braiding class the other day. My kids ain't never gonna have long hair, but it just seemed like something
Hmm.
fun to do. And I
Right.
just like, I want the same thing for black men because the same way I tell parents, like when you're rearing your children, the best way for them to have more compassion for themselves and the best way for them to have more confidence is that they have to try new things, know what they're
Yeah.
good at, fall in their
Hmm.
behind, or even see if they still enjoy it. But I want to see the
Hmm.
same thing for black men. Like I want to be like I want to do the same thing of like, oh, you just decided to go out to dinner by yourself. Like, do black men do that? Speaking for every
Yeah.
single black man, Kizzle, because this is what you have to do. You have to speak for every
Yeah.
single black man, so make it good. I tell every black man who comes on here, like, all right, well, now, I mean, today, you the person. Speaking for every single black man.
The black
So,
male
like,
spokesperson.
you are the spokesperson today. Do you see as
Yeah.
much of a priority as, like, because women, we do get conversations lately about, like, don't make it everything about a man. You also got to see
Hmm.
what you enjoy. Do you get
Hmm.
conversations like, all right, now, you also got to see what you like as a person? You also
Yeah.
have to see
Yeah.
what you enjoy. It's also important to
Yeah.
realize that women aren't the only people who have choices out here. Men have choices too. So what do you like to
Hmm.
do? Like,
Hmm. Yeah. So we're having those conversations slowly but surely. And
mm-hmm,
it's not as broadcasted and it's not as like mainstream as you would see with some women because it's still like not as accepted. Because if you look at it, right, like I was just talking to some of the things that we're bringing up right now. So interesting. I was just talking to Odie about this on the podcast episode. Like as we start to come out more as black men and we're like being more vulnerable and we're kind of like evolving, we're starting to see like there's certain demographics of women that are not interested in that at all. And
mm-hmm,
they're coming out and they're saying things and they're calling men like sassy and all these different kind of things. And it's
yeah,
kind of deterring some of the men from like, yo, you know what? Actually, maybe I don't want to do that because I don't want to be called sassy. You know, like I don't want that label. And all that is like stripping men of their manhood, essentially emasculating a man because he's now evolving into something. He's evolving into not even evolving. He's actually deciding to be fully human for probably the first time in his life.
yeah,
Right. It's not even evolving because I don't want to use the word evolving. Evolving is like we're going into something else. No, he's just deciding to actually be human. So we are having those conversations slowly but surely, but you're not going to see it as much on social media because we're also being met with some pushback from other demographics. And this is not only women, because there's men out here that are calling other men sassy and like that are really sticking to the patriarchy and like all these other like forms of like the traditional quote unquote masculinity, right? So yes, the answer is yes. Like what I'll speak for myself. I have a group of friends that we can literally get on the phone or be in person and we can cry with each other, we can hug each other, we can talk and laugh and have those kind of conversations about whatever. And we have those conversations on the podcast. I'm not just saying this just to say it because it sounds good. We actually have episodes on the podcast where we've gotten together, we've talked. One of our friends just cried. We've consoled him. We've kind of worked through those emotions with him and had those conversations. So those episodes are up. So yes, we are doing that work. I think the other thing that I wanted to mention is that it's really important for us to not wait on people to create the space for us. I think that's one thing that we've kind of gotten wrong in this whole like healing thing, which is we're constantly like looking to assess like, is there enough space? Is there space here? Is this a safe space for me to have these I don't wait for anybody to create a safe space for me. I create it myself. Like when I go into a school and I'm talking to kids, that's not a safe space. I don't know these kids at all. They could literally
kids are vicious.
Right, you know what I'm saying? Like, right. And I'm not even talking about like little kids. I'm talking about like like I go into like a college, right? Like, and there are students that are like maybe in like their teenage, right?
They also vicious. They humble.
Oh, for sure, right?
Yo,
that is not.
I be like,
yeah, that is not a safe space at all. But what I do is I create it, right? Like I create the space for myself. I call it leading with vulnerability. I come in there and I tell them my story, the same story I just told you about going through depression and having suicide ideations, going through a breakup, being cheated on. All that kind of stuff. I start with that. I create the space, right? And so I want us to normalize that more, like normalize creating the space in your circle. And if you can't create that space in your circle, maybe those aren't the folk that you should be hanging around with a lot. Cause that's what I had to do. I would talk with some of my, close, childhood friends, and I would realize like there wasn't really much space for us to have really deep conversations. And I knew that I was looking for more. And so I found new friends. I found different friends that I could have those conversations with. And so I encourage any man, woman, whoever, right, that's listening to this to take that with them and not only look for spaces that are already created, but create the spaces themselves.
So how did you find new friends? Because I recently saw something on social media about like making new friends, and this guy commented like, men don't do that. I'm like, well, sorry, sir. It sounds like you need a friend. Like, so how did you find like new friends? Like, how does that work for you? Because I've literally met new friends just because I'm just like, oh, your bracelet is so cute. What is your number?
Yeah, right. Like, see, and this is, we getting somewhere. Dr.
It's
Mark,
so simple for me.
It's not even it's not just for you. You said something really important there, right? You said, I like your bracelet. What's your number? When I thought about that, instantly, I thought about a man approaching a woman that he wants to date. I was just telling my friend, right? And so I'm going to tie this all together. I'm going to tie in why I said that. I was just telling my friend, I was like, yo, you have to approach finding friends the same way you approach dating. I know you be out here looking, right? You're looking, right? I was talking to a woman, by the way. Actually, I was talking to a woman about this, but this goes for both any person, any type of person, right? I know you're out here looking, right? You're looking for someone to be in a relationship with. You need to be the same way you're looking for some people to be in a relationship with. You need to be looking for people to be in friendship with. It's the same thing. So when you say, yo, I like your bracelet, what's your number? It's literally, you say, oh, I make it that simple. Because it is that simple. You go to spaces where people gather that are like-minded. And you had another good tip on dating that we posted, and you were talking about being in conferences, and you were like, yo,
more people. Oh my God. First of all, a lot of people scam me on that. Like I do have eyes on the people who held, all y'all who held your lackluster events that are not the same. I'm just saying, when I was at Urban League, I did a talk at Urban League about burnout. It was amazing. Like just being around so many, like just Black people, and it was generational. Everybody was there for the same vibe. Let me tell you something. I know everybody who's at DNC, first of all, somebody's leaving with their husband or wife there this week. I already know this. Sure. Everybody's like, oh, I'm going to DNC. Pack nice, okay? I need you to put it on. Because you will find.
And here's the thing. Right? Here's the thing, right? I've been to a few conferences. I've been to Essence Fest, where I was in Essence Fest, and I sent a message in the group chat. I said, y'all need to pull up to this.
Well, here's the thing. What year was that? Because one year, I distinctly remember seeing, like, there was a difference, and I was like, y'all, the men have found out about Essence Fest. Because I'm so used, I just remember being like, you should just be all women. And then, like, one year, it was more men, and I'm like,
yeah. I think it was 2022 probably. And so I sent a text. I said, yo, y'all got to pull up to this. Y'all playing. Because, and it's not just for that, right? Like it's the marketing conferences. A lot of women are in the marketing space. Like, and we're talking about relationships, but let's get back to the friendship, right? Like, essentially the point that I'm trying to make is you need to go to spaces where the people that you want to be around, that you feel like are like-minded, like you, are at. I find friends often in the gym. I go to the gym in the morning. Yo, bro, you done with that? Yeah, I'm good. Nah, actually, I got one more set, bro. I'm gonna call you when I'm done. Boom. Now I'm finished my set. I call son over. I give him a pound. Next time I see him in the gym, we dap up. Boom, that's my friend now. Now we can have conversations. It's that simple, bro. If I go out to a restaurant or I'm chilling by myself, dolo or whatever, like I can have a conversation at the bar with somebody. I could chop it up with somebody or a couple or whatever. I don't have to you don't have to make it difficult, right? So we like what you said is exactly what it is. But oftentimes people don't see the need to put effort into finding friends because they just think that should be something that just is like poof magically happens, right? Because we've always been able to build friends since we were young because we were forced to find friends in school. But now when you're not in school anymore and you have to actually go out and have these different kind of conversations, it's uncomfortable for people. So people rather just deal with the friends that they have, even if they know the friends that they have are probably not the ones that they need to grow.
Yeah, I was actually talking to my students. At one point, they had mentioned, we were talking about something, and they were like, oh, well, that seems difficult. So, like, it looks like I don't have an option. I was like, I don't know who the flip told you that just because something is difficult, that means that there is no option. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not the same thing. They're like, well, it just seems like it's a lot of work. Everything's a lot of work. And people, like, like, relationships, when people mention that they're work, I don't mean that they're work to the point that they're not like worth it. I don't mean like their work meaning like, like you really got to force yourself to be in that relationship. It's work to be in a relationship with yourself. I exhaust myself. I'm constantly thinking. I always, like that. It's work to be in a relationship with yourself. Why wouldn't it be work to be in a relationship with friends or in a romantic relationship? One of the things I keep seeing people talk about, friendships have been evolving into like, I don't see them as much. I don't talk to them as much because they really just think that because it's a friendship, I shouldn't have to work on our relationship or on our intimacy or on our like conversations. Like I shouldn't have to work on that because some part of you, sometimes the conversations that we get when it comes to working on relationships, most of the time you only hear about it when it comes to romantic relationships. Like,
oh, for sure.
Marriage is work, but like working on yourself is work, right? Discipline takes work. Self-care takes work. Working on a friendship takes work, especially when all of us are, we're all dealing with capitalism and you got like work, you got school, you got life, you got drinking your water, staying hydrated. It all takes time and energy. But I think we've gotten to the space where things are breaking down because you didn't think you had to put forth effort. And it's just like, oh, I thought I could just pop back into your life. My man can't just pop back into my life. Why do you think you could just pop in? Like, what you talking about? Like, I haven't talked to you in like a year. Now you in town and you want to go to brunch? I don't know you. I don't even live in that state anymore. You didn't even know that. Because I haven't talked to you in like a year, bro. Like, what are you talking about? Like, so people just really like, they just really don't get it. It's like, oh, you've lost your mind and I'm not here to help you find it. Don't call me. Like, first of all, I'll be like, who is this? Who is this? I've deleted this number. I don't know who this is. Second of all, like all relationships are going to be work. And I do think it can be that simple. I think you can do things even with it being difficult. And I totally get this is not everyone's style. Like I said multiple times, like I met my husband because I was like, you're cute. Put my number in your phone. I want what I want. Now that could have very much not have been a long-term relationship, but it's just like, I mean, when you're meeting romantic partners, I'm not attracted to your personality. I don't know nothing about you. I like your face. Okay. And then we'll see if I like your personality, but really just as simple as like introducing myself. And every time I hear this, I tell this story. They're like, what would you done if he said no? Then like, okay, you're lost. Like, what you want me to do about that?
Right.
I just like, what?
It's such a
I'm a delight.
Yeah. I guarantee you most of the people that ask you that are probably women. What would you do if he says no? Like, are those women that are asking you that most of the time?
Oh yeah, I think most guys that I engage with are just always they're just not surprised. They're just like, yeah, you are pretty just there. Like what? Like what's the? It's not an insult. It's like I'm assertive in every single thing that I do. But if you want to have bad taste, that is your prerogative, honey. Like because clearly you have bad taste. So, like, you can't fault people for having bad taste, guys. That's just what it is. Now, luckily, that wasn't the case.
Mm,
you
mm,
know? But like,
right.
I kind of think you should think about it like that. Like, they got bad taste. Sucks. Or
Right.
maybe they're in a relationship, but the reason doesn't really matter. I've
Yeah, it
always
doesn't.
felt that my happiness is not in the hands of someone else. And then introducing myself to
Mm,
my husband at that time, I see it the same way. Like, I very much be like, I'm not going to leave my happiness to a man. Like, so if I think it would
mm,
be fun to go out on a date, I'm going to ask myself. I'm also aware that it's just as difficult for men to walk up to women as it is for women to walk up to men. So it's kind of just
mm,
like, I mean, are we not talking about equal opportunity here? Like, what's the
mm,
big deal? I think some women have an issue with that because they think, like, oh, they're going to see me as leading the whole relationship. And I can wholeheartedly tell you, I would never be with someone who I could walk all over because I would. Okay.
mm,
Like,
mm,
I think they think, like, well, any man who allows you to just walk up to them and ask them out, like, they're going to expect you to lead the entire relationship. I wish I got to lead this whole man. I wish I got to just be like, hey, babe, I really want to go to Dubai today. So, like, suck it up, get over
mm,
it. That is not my marriage. My God.
mm,
Like, you know,
mm,
it's still a partnership. One moment of introducing yourself or one moment of deciding to like take initiative doesn't mean that you're going to be like dragging someone, like you're going to be walking with them while they hold
right.
your purse the entire relationship. It just means at what point you took the initiative. What's the big deal?
Right.
You know,
Right.
like
Right.
people meet my husband and they're like, wow, he's a, you know, strong, silent type. And I was like, yeah, what you think? Because I introduced to him, he was going to come up and be like, hey guys,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want? Like, and if that's the relationship you want, that's fine. But I think people have the misconception that introducing yourself to someone, that taking the first step, which is very much the first step, it's not the only step. It's not like you walk forward and you're not moving. Taking the
Mm-hmm.
first steps means, oh, I'm just not, this is how the whole relationship is going to be. Everything is going to be on my shoulders. I'm always going to have to
Mm-hmm.
take the first step. They're not really going to be autonomous. Like, they're just going to, and that's not the case. I think it's a big misconception, but men struggle with speaking to women just especially since I'm be real with you and I'm a girl's girl. Honestly, some of the ways that I have heard women speak to men, you would have to square up. I'm be real with you. And I'm not saying I'm not saying
You better
but let
clean
me
that
tell
up.
you something. This time if any girl talks or whoever their partner is talks to my sons, I'm gonna be like, go get your mom. You can even go get your dad. But we about to fight, yo. Because like
Mm-hmm.
they said, what I ain't gonna lie to you. But on the other end, some of the ways that men approach women, I'd be like, wow, you're so lucky I'm not strapped because like this is really
Mm-hmm.
dangerous. Like this is very concerning.
Mm-hmm.
But some
Mm-hmm.
listen, I'd be like, ooh, where's she at, bro?
Mm-hmm.
Because like we friends. Where's she at? Like what
Mm-hmm.
where did she go? I just
It's
want
hard
to
out in
talk.
these streets.
It's hard for both sides, but I will say like
Yeah.
some of this, I just be like, what's her
Mm-hmm.
Instagram?
Let's When I was in college, I had to get over that when I went through my breakup. I had been in a relationship for most of my teenage years. So I hadn't had the practice of like pulling up on girls and like,
Yeah.
yo, you're beautiful. What's your number? Da, da, da. So I had to like, I went through a trial and error phase. And
Hmm.
that's just how it is. That's how everybody learns. You go out to somebody, you probably stutter a little bit. You probably fumbling your phone. You don't even know where to get to the content. You don't know what you're doing.
Yep.
And you have a couple of those and you get embarrassed and then you go back and talk to your bros and y'all laugh about it. And then you go again and then you realize like, yo, it don't matter. This is a human being. If she don't like me, it don't matter.
She don't.
And I started, like,
You know,
who cares? I'm probably never going to see this person ever again. Who
I'm very
cares?
much a who cares person. Like, oh well, like you know, like what?
Yeah, like it does
I'm about
not
to walk
matter.
somewhere else.
It does not matter. And then once I started having that mindset, that's when you start becoming a little dangerous because then it's like you really just be out here moving with no care in the world. Not necessarily no care in the world,
Yeah.
but it's like you can really pull up and talk to anybody. And when I mean dangerous, I mean like you're sociable and it's a good thing to have for any type of person. You're interpersonal. You can go in any type of setting and have a conversation with anybody. And I think it's important for all of us to be able to do that. And so I'm an introvert. Like people don't know that, but like I'll come on podcasts and like we'll have this conversation and I'll be very like, I have my energy and all that kind of stuff. As soon as these headphones come off and that might go back, I'm like, oh, thank God. So like coming, like getting to the point where I was like extroverted enough to pull up on people and have conversations and like bring people over and have podcasts, have all these different kind of things. Trust and believe me, I've had to do a lot of work. So again, I'm not just saying stuff just to say stuff. Whenever I say anything, there is little work, probably years of work behind what I'm saying. Like, so if there's any person that's listening to this right now and they're like, nah, I don't think I could pull up on. Yes, you can. Yes,
Yeah.
you can. You can. Whether it's a relationship or a friendship, you can pull up on that person and say whatever it is that you need to say in a respectful way. And if they're not with it, it's not a reflection or indication of anything about you. And I think that's what people
Yeah.
do. They hang their hat. They hang their hat on the person's response because we're always seeking that like external validation.
And I think that's always, and I think you mentioned a very good point about like as long as you're being respectful, like the number of
Mm-hmm.
times, and you know what, I'm be real with you, just being from Philly.
Oh
If I
yeah.
tell someone I'm not interested, I mean, I guarantee you I'm going to be called out my name 5 seconds later. I mean, like all of a sudden now I'm ugly. I'm like, was I ugly 2 minutes ago, sir? Like
Right.
that seems excessive. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I get the fact that like I am a different breed in terms of being like, oh, well, F you. No, thank you. That's why I said I didn't want your number. You're just, this makes no sense. But as long as you're being respectful and like being understanding, like I just hate the whole aspect, and on both sides, I hate the whole aspect of like you turn someone down and then like maybe somebody laughs at you. I mean, if it's your friends, I mean, I'm
it's different.
Like dudes, y'all are terrible to each other as well. But like if it's your friend, you know, like
Yeah, no,
just
absolutely.
like oh, somebody get this man a drink. That was embarrassing. You know, like you know, I get that's how y'all friendships is. I get it, but like you know, yeah, somebody help him out, help him pick his jaw up off the floor, man. That woman just stomped on him. But you know, like, but as long as it's respectful, I think it's the same thing with like making friends. I think it just has to be like a focus on, and I do think people have to be intentional with it. My hope would be that like the same way I wholeheartedly see a shift in Black women in the way they focus on themselves. I would really love if I saw that shift with Black men too. And just
It's
understanding
happening.
that like they don't have to, yeah, you don't have to like identify yourself according to a woman, because women work very hard not to identify themselves according to a man. And if you feel like the woman only wants you to provide the 3 P's, like think about that's gonna get old, yo. Like I'm be real, that's gonna get old. It's gonna get old, and it's always gonna shift. Because let me tell you something: that woman who loves every single thing about you and your money and your wallet, is soon y'all have kids, y'all get a marriage, y'all a relationship, she's gonna be like, oh, I need you to help with this and this. And you're gonna be like, oh, that's not what our relationship was built on. Our relationship was built on cash. Okay? You never told me I had to be present emotionally. You never had to told me I had to care for you postpartum. You never told me I had to go see your stupid little friends because now we married, so now we gotta have married friend events. I told you that I was only providing you with money.
Right.
So like even just for women, when you think about the way you're building a relationship and you're only building off the tangible, and when you try to switch it up, don't be surprised when they're like, oh no, I'm out. You told me all you wanted was money. You didn't say money and being faithful. You just said I had to purchase it. You didn't say you had to be the only person I was flying out. You just said you wanted to get flown out, and I did that. Now the suite next door, I also purchased that for someone else. But once again, you never asked me about me. You never asked me about my emotions. You never asked me about the fact that, you know, I do have 3 roommates, aka a wife and kids. You never asked me about that. You just said, I want to get flown out. When you're in town, I want to hang out. Like that, you also have to think about on both sides, like what your relationship is built on. Because if it's only built on what you can provide and what you can produce, and when you need that extra level, and as we get older, you will need that extra level, it's foreign. It's like, we've been together 2 years and you're just now asking me for that. Now the person can decide to change. They can decide to be like, I'm able to be there for you. But they can also be like, that's not what I signed up for. It's kind of one of the most difficult sessions I had with a patient was they had done all this healing and they had been working on themselves, and they were like, I really want these people to see how much I have grown. Like these people who my relationships with them are severed. And I'm like, well, they can see it or not see it, but you were never supposed to work on yourself for them. And the same way you decided to work on yourself, the same way they can decide that like, yeah, you're doing amazingly and you've grown. And I still don't want to continue like friendships with you because I'm never going to be healed from what you did previously. People can choose to continue on that journey with you, but they can also be like, no, it's a no. And that's, you talk about respecting boundaries. My boundary is I don't ever want to talk to you again. Yeah, I can see you're different.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't particularly care. You know, like that was the hardest session for someone to go through. Like they can't see I'm better. So who cares if they can't see they're better? Did you do this for them or for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, like when you say that, I'm thinking about my ex. Like I don't care what type of work she do. She could be standing next to she could be standing next to Jesus. I tell you something right now. I don't care. I do not care. I do not give a damn. I don't give a damn. I wish her the best though. Absolutely. Like, and I mean that like wholehearted. When I say that, people are like, oh, you really wish her. I'm serious. I want her to succeed. I want her to do well. Just not around me. That's
See,
it.
I'm different. I could not possibly care less. Like, it wouldn't even be like, wish you the best. Wish you the best. Who is this? Like, what are you talking about? Because to be honest, I've been with my husband 14 years. Ex who? Who are we talking about? I've been with this man for almost 2 decades. These people don't exist to me. Like, what?
I feel you. I feel you. Nah, I feel you.
Kevin
Everybody
Gates-
has a different way. Yeah.
Kevin Gates did this hilarious interview. I think it was Breakfast Club, and he was like, you know what I don't deal with? That whole like, I wish you the best. He said, I don't wish you the best. Die today. He's like, I don't care. And I was like,
oh my god. No.
and it's not that extreme.
No.
This is also the man who said he started a car with his bare hands. I mean, come on. Like,
yeah.
But it's also like, I don't, listen, I don't even know what. I don't even have my own memory anymore. I don't even have to remember things that I like. I'd be like, what was that restaurant I hated with that thing I didn't like? Tell me now or I'm divorcing you. Because I can't be responsible. I can't remember stuff decades earlier. But no, you can wish people the best, but you can also be like, tripped and fell. Sucks. And we ain't all gonna be Kizzle, y'all. You ain't gotta hold disdain, but you can also be like, whatever.
Listen, that's what I said. Everybody has different ways and different processes. And I'm never gonna judge somebody for how they process, especially if somebody's done traumatize them to the point that they're gonna remember that for the rest of their lives. So
yeah.
Understandable for sure.
As long as they're not malicious with it. I have had to work with people and just being like, or having the extra energy, because there's a difference between genuinely wishing someone well. There's a difference between genuinely not thinking of someone. And you're saying that, but you are actually putting energy out, wishing them terrible things. Like you're actually putting energy out of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing this because, if I ever meet them, I want them to see how good I've gotten. And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I thought we were making so much progress.
Right. Yeah.
We got to switch from bi-weekly to weekly sessions again.
Yeah.
Because that's not the same thing. Wishing someone well and being like, I want to do better just in case. That's not the same thing. Friendships too. Not. Because there's a lot of people who harbored like difficulties with friendships. That group trip was just so bad that you're like, you lose a lot of friendships on group trips. You really don't realize that, like, wow, we're in a different country and you're super cheap. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, McDonald's? We're in Peru. I'm not going to McDonald's in Peru, sir. Like, you lose a lot of
trips.
Group trips. Like, when they finally make it out, sometimes it'd be like, yo,
we gotta leave everybody. You in the U.S.
We gotta leave you. You could be a U.S. friend the same way you can't, invite, you can't eat at everybody's crib. All of that.
Some people gotta stay in the U.S. They cannot go overseas.
They cannot because, like, they're the worst. Or they get you arrested. Don't nobody want to get arrested overseas. Like, these are not the same rules.
Oh God, you're about to trigger me, bro.
What?
Please. Let's just trust and believe me. I've had some experiences with brothers. I'm like, y'all do not know how to move outside of the U.S. and I'm not doing this with y'all again because this is crazy.
Well, before I trigger you. Tell people where to find you, but tell me a little bit about your community as well, A Black Man's Safe Haven, because I definitely want to know about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So A Black Man's Safe Haven is a holistic healing forum that was created by me. So what we do inside of Safe Haven is we essentially try to make it as easy as possible for Black men to get access to what they need to heal holistically. And so part of that process is we have Safe Haven healers who are Black mental health professionals that come in like yourself and do coaching sessions with the brothers inside of the platform for $75 a session at this point. Those sessions are 60 minutes long, and we do coaching because we know that a lot of therapy has like restrictions, and it's not, if a brother goes from Florida to New York and he has a therapist that's licensed in Florida, he can't go and see that therapist in New York. And so we wanted to make sure that brothers have like an experience where regardless of where they are, they're able to meet with the person that they've shared some intimate details with and can really continue to work regardless of where they are. And so that's one of the big benefits of the Safe Haven Healers program. That is what we look at for like your mental and emotional health. But then we have other features inside of Safe Haven also for the brothers. So we have events that happen weekly. So we have a morning meditation that's bi-weekly that happens on Mondays. That's led by Reggie, where we do like sound baths, like different types of meditations just to get brothers ready for the week, because oftentimes we go into Mondays with a bunch of anxiety because we're like, three P's: I got to produce, I got to provide, I got to protect, and I got to do it for another week, and I got to make sure I'm getting all my finances right, and I don't know where I'm at. And so Monday is like a hectic day. So we try to start the Monday off with the right intentions. That's why we do the weekly or the bi-weekly meditations. And we also have the community forums. Those are events that are led by some of our safe haven moderators, where we have the brothers come together and just talk about some of the variety of things that they may be dealing with, but they're also in that space to be able to talk about some of the things they may be grateful for, because oftentimes we're always looking at the issues but never looking at the things that have actually gone right in our lives. And I've realized that like shifting that mindset is very important, especially when dealing with different types of depression. And so we do that inside of the community forums. And then we have a couple of other events that are led by therapists. So we have a grief support group that happens monthly. And then we also have a psychoeducational group that happens twice a month. The grief support group is obviously for grief. And I think oftentimes we don't think about how many different types of grief there are, right? Like when we talk about friends, like losing friends, that's a point, that's a grief. You're grieving not having that friend anymore. They don't have to die for you to be grieving them. I think that's the only thing that we think about when it comes to grief, is like somebody passing away. But nah, like a divorce is grief, being cheated on is grief, right? Like being broken up with or getting out of a relationship is grief. Not having a friendship anymore is grief. Like, so all of those different types of things are grief. And so we have a grief support group to kind of talk about all those different types of things. And I think it's called disenfranchised grief. It's the grief that we oftentimes don't talk about, but still happens. And we don't have a process for dealing with it because we don't talk about it and we don't think about it as grief. The other thing is the psychoeducational support groups. Those are groups that happen twice a month, and we talk about a variety of different things on there. So it's like open forum. It's led by Odie, which we have a podcast out with. We talked about father wounds in the podcast. And inside of the psychoeducational groups, we could talk about anything. It could be masculinity, femininity, emotional vulnerability, politics, what's going on in the world, being a sassy man, like it could be anything, right? And so we can have a conversation about those things and really be able to like have a locker room type of conversation, but also with a professional in there so that you can get that professional insight. So it's not just a bunch of bashing and insults going on and nobody really getting insight into how to be better as men. So those are the events. We also have a healing library, a bunch of different articles. We have affirmations that we have inside the platform. We have some AI tools, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. We have a medical concierge service because, again, this is holistic wellness. It's not just for mental and emotional health. So the medical concierge service, a lot of times brothers don't get their physicals, they don't get their annual checkups, either because they can't afford to get there, or they don't know how to get to their doctor, or they don't have a doctor. So the medical concierge service is a partnership that we have with the Healthcare Plug, where brothers can fill out a form. And once they fill out a form, that form goes to the Healthcare Plug. The Healthcare Plug has a volunteer that will reach out to the brother when in the area that he's in and find a doctor for him that's, reputable, and then also in some instances pay for their transportation to and from the doctor's appointment to make sure that they get there, and in some instances also cover their copay. And so that's a partnership that's free as part of their Safe Haven membership. So safe to say we're doing a lot inside of Safe Haven. So if brothers are interested, right, they can follow us at Express Yourself Black Man, exactly how it is spelled, Express Yourself Black Man, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And the link in our bio has the link to Safe Haven for them to join, and they'll get all access to all of those different benefits that I just mentioned, and plus more that I'm probably forgetting right now. And again, that's Express Yourself Black Man. And if people aren't on social media, they can go on expressyourselfblackman.com/links. And then they'll see all the links to all the different things, the podcast where we have over 100 episodes. We have an episode with you in there as well, and a bunch of other Black mental health professionals, and just Black men and women just talking about a variety of the things that we normally talk about, but we don't really, open up and talk about, and we don't really look to seek professional insight and try to get like solutions for some of these problems that we're having in our community.
Yeah, and all of that information will also be in the show notes. So if you don't look at the Instagram or the website, which like let's have some sense, guys, but like it'll also be on the. Sometimes people will be like, "Well, where do I find it?"
Did you look it up on Google, brother?
I literally said, "Oh, this shirt is by somebody." Somebody commented, "Well, don't gatekeep." Okay, well, I won't gatekeep the same way you don't read. I don't know what to tell you, honey. Like, I genuinely, like, I what? What?
Not you packing up your audience, man.
I just feel like every day. That's what they're here
Every
for.
day.
Okay? Because it's quite, everybody be like, oh, I love your psychoeducation, but I really like when you talk to people crazy. And I said, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, people
You're
do
supposed to
love
be
that
here
though.
for the education.
Nah. They like the personality.
You
And that's what it
know?
is. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't gatekeep. Ma'am, I'm about
It's
to
on
block
Google.
you. I'm going to block
Do
you.
you have access to a laptop
You
or a
know?
phone?
But yeah, so guys, if you don't want to look at the Instagram, and then you also don't want to look at all the YouTube, and if you also don't want to look at the website, it's also in the show notes, and I add the hyperlink so you guys can just click it. Bunch of episodes. I mean, I've been following Kizzle for years, so bunch of episodes as well. And man, and please, if you look at my episode, you guys don't look at the poor quality camera. I've gotten a better camera.
Listen, look at the camera and then come back and look at this episode and acknowledge the growth.
Oh, this 1080p. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know that, but everyone, once again, have a fantastic day, week, year, all of that. Remember to be kind to yourself. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. That is just math, and have a good rest of your day.